For 50 years, we were told energy security meant one thing: oil. Wars were fought over it. Presidents rose and fell because of it. OPEC could move markets with a single phone call. But while the world was still arguing about pipelines and oil tankers, China was building something else entirely. Quietly, without headlines, without a single OPEC-style cartel meeting. Today, in the deserts of Xinjiang, in processing plants most Westerners have never heard of, China has built a grip on global energy that has nothing to do with oil wells. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The next 50 years of energy security won't be decided by who pumps the most crude. It will be decided by who owns the refining plants, who owns the factories, who owns the minerals that power every solar panel, every battery, every wind turbine on Earth. And by that measure, China isn't competing anymore. It's already won most of the board. This is how it happened, and why almost nobody in the West saw it coming until it was too late to reverse. Start with solar power, the industry the West assumed it would lead. It didn't work out that way. According to the International Energy Agency, China now controls over 80% of global manufacturing at every single stage of solar panel production. Polysilicon, ingots, wafers, cells, finished panels. In some of those stages, its share isn't 80%, it's closer to 95%. 9 of the world's 10 largest polysilicon producers are Chinese companies. This didn't happen through a single lucky breakthrough. China invested over $130 billion into solar manufacturing capacity in a single recent year alone. That's not a company spending, that's a national campaign. Now look at batteries, the technology quietly becoming as strategically important as oil once was. 2 Chinese companies, CATL and BYD, now account for more than half of all electric vehicle batteries installed worldwide. Widen the lens to include every Chinese battery manufacturer, and the number climbs past 70% of the entire global market. 6 of the world's top 10 battery makers are based in China. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. Automakers in America, Germany, and Japan, the companies whose names built the 20th century auto industry, are now structurally dependent on Chinese battery architecture to build their electric vehicles. And there's a second strategy hiding inside these numbers. Economists call it overcapacity. China's state-backed subsidies pushed domestic manufacturers to build more solar panels and batteries than the world even needed. The result was brutal for competitors. Prices collapsed. Solar module prices fell by half in a single year, then dropped again. Profit margins for Western and even some Chinese manufacturers were wiped out entirely. More than 40 solar companies exited the market during the price collapse. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. When the dust settled, China's largest manufacturers were still standing. Their smaller global competitors, the ones without state backing, were not. Overcapacity wasn't a mistake, it was a filter, and it left China holding the manufacturing base for the entire next generation of global energy. But manufacturing panels and batteries was never the real prize. There's a number buried in a 2025 International Energy Agency report that explains almost everything about how modern energy power actually works. I'll get to that number in a moment, because to understand it, you first need to understand a distinction most people miss entirely. Mining a mineral and refining it are 2 completely different businesses. Australia mines enormous amounts of lithium. Chile mines it too. The Democratic Republic of Congo produces most of the world's raw cobalt. But raw ore is nearly useless. It has to be refined into battery-grade material before it can power anything. And that refining stage is where China has quietly built its real choke point. China refines roughly 60 to 70% of the world's lithium. It refines around 74 to 80% of the world's cobalt, even though the raw material itself is dug out of the ground in Africa. And rare earth elements, the materials inside every electric motor, every wind turbine magnet, every precision-guided weapon system, China refines close to 90% of the global supply. Now, here's that number. According to the IEA's Global Critical Minerals Outlook, China is the leading refiner for 19 out of 20 strategic minerals tracked by the agency. 19 out of 20, with an average market share around 70%. Even when a mineral is mined in Australia or Chile or Central Africa, there's a very good chance it still has to travel to China before it becomes usable. This is what geopolitical analysts call the refining trap. You can mine a mineral anywhere in the world, but if you can't refine it, you don't actually control it. And China has demonstrated, more than once, that it understands the leverage this gives it. In recent years, Beijing has placed export restrictions on materials like graphite, gallium, and germanium, components essential to batteries, semiconductors, and defense manufacturing. Each restriction was a quiet reminder to the rest of the world of exactly who controls the choke point. This is not simply an industrial advantage anymore. It's geopolitical leverage, applied one export license at a time. Here's where the story goes global. China didn't just dominate energy manufacturing at home. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, it exported the infrastructure itself. Since 2013, Chinese state-backed companies have completed hundreds of overseas power projects, representing an estimated $200 to nearly $300 billion in investment and well over 150 gigawatts of installed power capacity across the developing world. Pakistan, Vietnam, Indonesia, countries across Africa and Latin America. These nations didn't just buy Chinese solar panels. In many cases, China built and financed their power plants, their transmission lines, even entire sections of their electrical grid. For years, a large share of this investment went into coal and gas, giving China influence over fossil fuel infrastructure across the developing world too. But the strategy has shifted. China's green energy and hydropower investment abroad has grown sharply in the past 2 years, as Beijing positions itself as the supplier of choice for the clean energy transition in the global south. Think about what this means practically. A country in Southeast Asia or East Africa looking to escape volatile oil and gas prices turns to solar and batteries as the affordable alternative. Where do those solar panels and batteries come from? Overwhelmingly from China. Who financed the power plant that installs them? Very often, a Chinese state bank. Who built the transmission lines carrying that power to homes and factories? Frequently, a Chinese state-owned construction firm. This is a different kind of empire than the ones history usually remembers. No armies, no flags planted in foreign soil. Just ownership of the infrastructure that keeps the lights on. The West has noticed. Late, but it has noticed. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act poured billions into domestic battery and solar manufacturing. The European Union passed its own Critical Raw Materials Act, aiming to reduce dependence on Chinese refining. New tariffs have gone up on Chinese solar panels, batteries, and processed minerals. On paper, this looks like the beginning of a serious correction. In practice, industry analysts estimate it will take 10 to 15 years to build the domestic refining and manufacturing capacity the West would need to seriously compete. China has had a 20-year head start. Refining plants, in particular, take years to permit and build, and the expertise to run them efficiently doesn't transfer overnight. So here is where this leaves the world today. The West is trying to build an energy future free from Chinese dependence. China is trying to make that dependence permanent, one refining plant, one overseas power project at a time. Neither side has won this yet, but right now, the numbers favor the side that started building 2 decades ago. The old measure of energy security was simple. Whoever pumped the most oil held the power. The new measure is quieter and in some ways far more absolute. It isn't about who drills the deepest well. It's about who owns the refinery, who owns the factory, who owns the grid. And for now, on nearly every one of those fronts, the answer is China. If you had watched the entire video, you have surely liked the video. You should not miss the next video. Please subscribe and hit the like button.